Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. Cyclone Michaung likely to make landfall today. Red alert for few districts in Andhra Pradesh. Offices, schools closed, flights halted in Chennai. Israel presses ground offensive in southern Gaza as internet and phone services go down. UN chief urges Israel to avoid worsening aid crisis. Indonesia's Merapi volcano erupts for a second day. Rescue team recovers 11 dead bodies out of 75 climbers who were in the area at the time of eruption. And in sports, Hockey Men's Junior World Cup 2023 begins in Kuala Lumpur today. Two-time champions India face Republic of Korea in tournament opener. And on to details now. The southern Indian state of Andhra Pradesh has witnessed heavy rainfall today, with Tirupati and Nellore districts facing the brunt of heavy downpour, leading to inundation and flooding at many places. Rescue measures are being undertaken on war footing. High alert has been sounded in Bapatla district of Andhra Pradesh, where the landfall is expected to happen today during the forenoon. The Nizampatnam harbour in Bapatla district hoisted cyclone warning signal 10, indicating a severe cyclone. NDRF is already deployed and more teams are on standby to mobilize as needed. Meanwhile, Tamil Nadu governor in an appeal advised people to follow the advice of the state government and stay home, stay safe until the situation improves. And DG NDRF Atul Karwal joins us on the phone for more. Atulji, welcome to the show. What is the current level of inundation? How badly is life and property affected there?
The inundation in Chennai was bad last evening and night, but now the rainfall has stopped in Chennai. As far as the life is concerned, I think Tamil Nadu has declared a loss of 9 lives. Which is tragic. In Andhra, we have had no loss of life. I hope it remains like that. We are in touch with the state government and have deployed NDRF teams as per requirement in the right now on the ground. As it has a landfall in the forenoon, the wind velocity will come down towards the evening, and hopefully friction will improve.
Right. Also, are people being able to get basic necessities like water, electricity there? Because the rains have been very bad.
Yes, that is being taken care of. And we have been attending calls for relief and rescue along with the teams of the state government in both these states. And situation would improve as time proceeds towards the evening today.
Also, rescue measures are being undertaken on war footing right now there. What more can you tell us about the precautions being taken?
Till now, Tamil Nadu, we have jointly evacuated about 624 people. And in a similar manner, in Andhra Pradesh, about 150 people have been evacuated from the fishermen for them. And as you mentioned earlier, people are need to be warnings, the advice of the state government and the rescue and response. Keep stay indoors, safe. Don't stir out to take pictures or take videos, because flying objects can still hit you and injure.
Right. Also, Atulji, when is the cyclone expected to make a landfall, which is more important now?
The exact time has not been indicated by the India Meteorological Department, but it's in the forenoon, maybe sometime between 11 and 12.
Okay, thank you so much, Atulji, for joining us and letting us know the information from there. And Priyanka Jain joins us from Chennai on phone for more. Well, Priyanka, what is the situation right now?
As you could see, as the system has moved 150 kilometers away from Chennai, the situation here is coming into normalcy. Things are changing. From yesterday night, if you could see, the rains have stopped. So the rain water, which is stagnant, is slowly, and areas slow by slow, come clearing up the areas. Major problem was with this falling, and the power is here. So shut down yesterday, if you could see. They slowly they are restoring the powers also, and trying to bring things back to normal.
What are the problems, Priyanka, the locals are facing there? You are there, you must be seeing people facing general day-to-day activity problems.
If you could see, the major problems in the city right now is because of the lack of transportation. The public transport has been affected. Metro is the only transport where they are able to communicate, and the suburban trains have been cancelled. And if you could also see, the airways is also blocked till further orders. So people right now are facing problems. Even the milk supply in several areas has been an issue for people. They are even taking measures to solve these problems.
Yes, but as you're saying, once the measures are being taken, are the authorities taking enough measures to solve people's problems? What is happening at the rescue footing?
If you could see, CM is closely monitoring the situation, and he's appointed 7 MLAs to immediately form a team and take stringent action. And even 9 IAS officers are also deployed, deputed for this operations. For all these clearing operations, they have been deputed. And if you could see, there are more than 5,000 people who are coming from other districts to Chennai for clearing all this water stagnant trees, uplifting the trees, and all the other measures.
Well, Priyanka, thank you for joining us and letting us know the update from there. Well, the situation is critical there, but rescue operations are underway. People are helping, and the rain has, the very good news is the rain has stopped and the landfall is expected very soon. Moving on the second day of the winter session of the Indian Parliament, today in the Parliament's lower house, the Lok Sabha, India's Home Minister Amit Shah will table the Jammu and Kashmir Reservation Amendment Bill 2023 as well as J&K Reorganisation Amendment Bill 2023 for discussion and passage. While in the Rajya Sabha, after question hour, a short duration discussion on the economic situation of the country will also take place. And for more, we have a correspondent, Vikas Sarthi, with us. Well, Vikas, second day of the Parliament winter session today, Jammu and Kashmir Reservation Amendment Bill 2023 is expected to be tabled by the Home Minister himself. What else is lined up?
Right, Lipakshi. So, very important bills related to Jammu and Kashmir will be discussed in the Lok Sabha today, and it is very likely that bills will be passed also today itself. These bills are related to providing reservation for scheduled tribe community in Jammu and Kashmir. We know that earlier in the Assembly, before the revocation of Article 370, there was no reservation for scheduled tribe community in the Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. So this bill will provide reservation for scheduled tribe community. Apart from it, some provisions have been made to enable Lieutenant Governor to nominate 2 persons from migrant Kashmiri community and 1 person who have been displaced from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So these bills will provide that representation to all communities must be ensured. These are important bills in the Lok Sabha. As far as the Rajya Sabha is concerned, there is no bill have been listed today for any debate or passage, but there will be a short duration discussion on the state of economy of the country. We are aware that the recent figures of GDP were very encouraging, and you can say that state of economy is very strong. And in comparison to other countries, we have a very robust economy as of now. So that there will be a discussion on that aspect, and it's a short duration discussion. So not more than 20-25 MPs will participate in it. These are the main important legislative work in both the houses.
All right, because also a major highlight on the first day of the winter session was the passing of the bill to repeal the Indian Post Offices Act 1898. Can you tell us more about that?
Right, Lipakshi, this bill was discussed and passed yesterday. The concerned minister, Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, underlined that there is no proposal, since most of the opposition MPs were raising issues like privatization of Indian Post. He yesterday ruled out any speculation of privatizing the Indian Postal Department. In fact, he said that this particular bill will enable Post Office to provide other services as well, other than the delivering letters and parcels. He also mentioned that India Post is one of the most trusted banking service provider. He said that as of now, India Post has lakhs of savings account, and in fact, he mentioned that in the savings account right now, India Post has 17 lakh crores. So he said that people trust Indian Post, government trust Indian Post, and therefore the department is being provided all necessary help from the government funds, whatever is needed, and there is no proposal for cutting down the budget or privatizing the post office department. So the underline is that in the coming days, we will see that other services are also being provided by Indian Postal Services. These postal offices are also providing passport services, and this particular bill will further provide a legal frame for these other activities other than the postal services and banking services. Some new and more services we will see in the coming days, which will be provided by Indian Postal Department.
All right, Vikas, thank you so much for that update from there. Indeed, Indian postal services are very important for the Indian economy. And moving on, Kenyan President William Samoei Ruto is on a state visit to India at the invitation of India's President Draupadi Murmu. He's accompanied by a high-level official delegation. President Ruto will be given a ceremonial reception at the forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi. President Ruto will also meet PM Modi on a one-on-one interaction, as well as delegation-level talks, followed by joint statements and signing of agreements. The visit comes as Ruto's first to India in his present capacity. President Ruto met India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar yesterday. And for more, we are now joined by our correspondent Meghna Dev on this. Well, Meghna, President Ruto will be given a ceremonial reception today, and he'll also meet the PM one-on-one. What more can you tell us about his itinerary today?
Yes, definitely a very important, for that matter, a very important visit, because this visit is taking place, you know, by from the Kenyan side after 6 years. And when we actually see that Prime Minister Narendra Modi, you know, actually accelerated the momentum of the relationship when he paid a visit to Kenya in 2016, and that was a visit which happened after 35 years. So definitely, you know, after that, the momentum of the relationship has been accelerated. We definitely see that today there is going to be a bilateral, bilateral engagement with the Prime Minister. The President of Kenya will talk to the Indian Prime Minister, and there will be an exchange of agreements. MOUs are expected today. Also, there is also going to be a banquet that will be hosted by President Draupadi Murmu in honor of the Kenyan President. Definitely, this is an an important visit when we are talking about different facets, when we're talking about different sector. We are talking about developmental cooperation, we are talking about defense cooperation, and we are talking also in the sense of what more can Kenya and India do in terms of the trade sector, how investments can be increased. We are also talking about, because India is one of the largest investors in Kenya, there are a number of sectors where Indian businesses have invested and have generated direct jobs for Kenyans there. We also do know that India has extended line of credit in the sector of power, energy, SMEs, and development cooperation is also on a high swing. So definitely more can be expected in that sector as well. So definitely a very power-packed event for that matter when we see about the engagements of the Kenyan president today.
Right, Meghna, as you told us, many joint statements and signing of agreements are also expected. Can you tell us more about them?
So, this is a very important part of the kind of discussions that are expected. First, we definitely see that when in 2016, the momentum accelerated and it took place, we saw that MOU was signed in the sector of defense. MOU was signed in the sector of housing development and management. So these were some of the sectors. We also saw line of credits extended in the sector of SMEs and textiles, and more so in that sector. Now, if what we see in terms of the current scenario, there can be agreements, or there can be talks about IT, there can be talks about medical sector. We also know that the number of companies who are there in Kenya are in the pharmaceutical sector, are in the IT sector. There can also be talks about Indian hospitals who would want to set up an infrastructure there in Kenya. So that is also going to be essential. We're also talking about defense cooperation here. We are talking about the medical sector here, IT sector here, and much more that can be explored, in the sense that what is the current need. Space sector is also one of the important sectors when we're talking about, what kind of sectors will be explored in the talks today. So, entire gamut of the bilateral relationship definitely will be reviewed. But when we talk about MOUs or agreements, a lot can be expected in these sectors.
All right, Meghna, thank you so much for that update, and we'll keep taking updates from you through the day. And still to come on DD India News Hour. And we give you an update on eruption of a highly active volcano in Indonesia. Heavy snowfall has hit Moscow, disrupting traffic on roads and flights in and out of Moscow airports. And India slashes greenhouse gas emissions by 33% from 2005 to 2019.
Do you know that every year, hundreds of thousands of Indian students go abroad to pursue higher education? But now, India has opened its doors for foreign higher education institutions who can set up and operate their campuses here.
Bringing these foreign university campuses will provide an additional opportunity to our students to study in foreign universities while staying in India.
How will you ensure that only the best universities come to India?
They should be within the top 500 ranks in the global rankings, although we have not specified any global ranking agency, but in general, or subject-wise, they should be within the 500 global rankings.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on. 3 survivors were found in Indonesia after the Merapi volcano erupted in West Sumatra as search operations, which were halted temporarily over safety concerns, resumed. The rescue team recovered 11 dead bodies out of 75 climbers who were in the area at the time of eruption. There were 49 climbers evacuated from the area early on Monday, and many were being treated for burns. There were still 12 climbers missing. Authorities raised the alert to the second highest level and prohibited residents from going within 3 kilometers of the crater. Well, we're joined by Patrick Falk from Singapore for more on this. Patrick, can you tell us about the status of the rescue operation? What is it right now?
Well, I can tell you that the rescue operations have resumed for those 12 climbers still missing from over the weekend. As you say, efforts had been halted on Monday due to another volcanic eruption. There was a new burst of hot ash, which was as high as 800 meters, according to officials, and that had made things very difficult, and conditions just weren't suitable to continue, so things had to be stopped on Monday. They have resumed now, but the situation is still very difficult. There is still a fear of further eruptions. There has been bad weather, poor visibility and rain that rescuers are having to contend with. We're told there are 120 rescuers involved. They're having to do everything by hand and bring people that they've managed to retrieve down the volcano by hand because the conditions aren't suitable for air retrieval in case of further volcanic activity. We have seen images of at least one person being stretchered off the volcano, and also heard reports about people being retrieved, being treated for burns at hospitals, and also really being in a bit of a state of trauma, you might say. But the whereabouts and condition of the remaining 12 climbers remains uncertain. It does seem it is a bit of a race against time to try and retrieve them.
All right. Also, reports suggest the eruptions took people by surprise, even though Merapi has been active since January. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it was, and it wasn't a surprise, really. As you say, there was a volcanic eruption that took place in January. It wasn't necessarily particularly significant, and there weren't any casualties then. And remember, Merapi is one of 120 active volcanoes in Indonesia. It's prone to seismic activity because of its situation on the Pacific Ring of Fire. But, you know, in the last few days, according to experts, there hadn't been any significant increase in volcanic earthquakes. And it suggests that the process, the volcanic process, happened all very quickly, and that was partly because of the fact that the source in Merapi is close to the surface, according to experts. So, as I say, you know, it was very difficult to predict, and experts have also said that it is difficult to predict the situation with Merapi, even with equipment, because of its nature, and so it has taken by people by surprise to an extent, you might say.
All right. Thank you so much for that information from there, Patrick. And moving on, a heavy snowfall has hit the Russian capital, disrupting traffic on roads and flights in and out of Moscow airports. Meteorologists say Sunday's snowfall, powered by a strong cyclone that formed over southern Europe last week, marked the absolute daily record in Moscow since observations began in 1878. Dasha Chernyshova has more from snow-hit Moscow.
Moscow has been hit by the strongest snowfall in decades. It began on Sunday and continued well into Monday. The snowfall brought additional 23 centimeters to already high levels of snow in the Russian capital, according to Deputy Mayor of Moscow, Pyotr Byrykov. About 135,000 people and 18,000 pieces of equipment were involved in the snow clearing effort. The works are ongoing, but Muscovites still find it hard to move around the capital because of the strong snowdrifts. Authorities issued an orange weather advisory due to strong winds as well. According to meteorologists, Sunday's snowfall marked the absolute daily record in Moscow since observations began in 1878. According to meteorologist Evgeny Tishkovets, such snow cover is usual for February, when snow piles hit their regular peak. Over 70 flights were cancelled at all major airports of the Russian capital, and at least 200 trucks got stuck in the snow since storm began and required assistance from road traffic workers, according to Moscow Transport Department. Dasha Chernyshova reported in Moscow for DD India.
Well, Nigeria loses an estimated 3.7% of its forest each year, according to the United Nations. It has lost 1.14 million hectares of tree cover from 2001 to 2021, the equivalent of 587 million tons of carbon emissions. Climate experts say the expansion of agricultural land and logging of trees are responsible for this and are urging the government to encourage more tree planting and sustainable agriculture. Correspondent Ajak Mangat reports.
Ohena Peter and his family are harvesting beans they planted a few months ago. He says the yield has been affected due to poor soil for planting crops.
The soil is not thicker as before, and that washes the nutrients of the soil, and there reduces the rate of what we produce in the farm. Before, we produced like 20 bags per hectare, but today we are having up to 6, 7 only on a hectare. And crops like corn cannot be planted on this soil due to the fact that the soil has lost its nutrients, except if we can afford fertilizer.
Nigeria has a huge problem with deforestation. Nearly 4% of its forest disappears every year.
According to the United Nations, Nigeria has the highest rate of deforestation globally. On this farm on the outskirts of Nigeria's capital, Abuja, only a handful of trees are standing.
Agricultural activities to meet the needs of Nigeria's growing population and cutting of trees for cooking fuel have been largely blamed for Nigeria's depleting forests. Experts say this has in turn impacted food production, as trees which should absorb carbon emissions and nourish the soil for crops to grow have decreased.
Agriculture is one of the highest sources of carbon emission globally, and also one of the highest sources of deforestation also. When the forest is not there to help nourish the soil becomes sterile. Are you not seeing now? So things like deforestation, so like desertification now, like we see in the Sahara area, you understand, starts popping up. In 2012, we saw flood that we are still yet to recover from. And just last year alone, we also witnessed another flood that claims over 630 lives. That's for human life, right? Not to talk of the economic impact.
Experts say the government needs to address this by planting more trees and encouraging climate-smart agriculture to reduce the impact that deforestation has on farmlands.
One of the solutions to reducing deforestation, first is afforestation. Now, you have to embark on massive tree planting initiatives, right, to cover up for the forest lost that we are even see depleting. The government also, as one of the solutions, has to start thinking of how to deploy, clean cooking technologies, so that, because once we now adopt these technologies, we will stop bringing down these trees, and that way the forest will be safe.
Nigeria's Ministry of Agriculture says it is incorporating technology and innovation into the agricultural sector to increase food production and reduce the impact of climate change. Last year, the government announced plans to engage young Nigerians to plant 250,000 trees to reduce carbon emissions. That is yet to be implemented. Until then, farmers like Peter will have to make do with a depleted harvest. Ajak Mangut in Abuja, reporting for DD India.
And moving on, the death toll from floods in northern Tanzania following torrential rains this weekend has risen to 63. Prime Minister Kassim Majaliwa said that the number of injured stood at 116. Severe flooding caused by El Nino and Indian Ocean dipole weather phenomena has forced hundreds of thousands to leave their homes in Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia and Tanzania since the rains began. And news from around the world now. The COP28 Finance Day witnessed a landmark breakthrough in international financial architecture with major commitments from influential countries and financial institutions to introduce innovative mechanisms supporting low-income and vulnerable nations against climate change. COP28 President Dr. Sultan Al Jaber stressed the importance of including the developing world in climate solutions.
Parties have rallied around a number of pledges and declarations that get the world moving in the right direction. That's the course correction we're talking about. That is us nurturing a new culture and a new DNA that is centered around making things happen.
India has slashed greenhouse gas emissions by 33% from 2005 to 2019, highlighting the country's efforts to promote renewable energy. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya reports for more.
India has shown remarkable progress in reducing its greenhouse gas emissions. India's emission intensity dropped by an astonishing 33% from 2005 to 2019. This achievement places India well on track to fulfill its commitment to the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, aiming to reduce emission intensity by 45% from 2005 level by 2030. Notably, the country experienced the fastest reduction in emission intensity to date, with an annual average reduction of 3% in the period of 2016-2019. This remarkable progress is largely attributed to government's initiatives towards renewable, despite fossil fuel maintaining a dominant position in the energy mix. The significant increase in forest cover has played a pivotal role in achieving this remarkable feat. As of 2019, India boasts of a substantial forest cover of 24.56%, covering 80.73 million hectares. India's GDP between 2005 to 2019 has grown with cumulative annual growth rate of about 7%, whereas the emission grew about 4%. This shows that India has successfully continued to decouple its economic growth from greenhouse gas emissions, resulting in the reduction of the emission intensity of its GDP by 33% between 2005 and 2019. India's share of non-fossil sources-based installed capacity of electricity generation in 2023 is more than 41%. India achieved its NDC target of 40% cumulative electric power installed capacity from non-fossil fuel-based energy sources in 2021, 9 years in advance of the target date of 2030. As India continues its journey towards a sustainable future, the focus on renewable energy, increased forest cover, and innovative solutions like green hydrogen mark a significant stride in mitigating climate change. Taposh Bhattacharya's report, DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Zelensky to address senators on military aid today as White House warns Putin could win if Ukraine aid dries up. The 5-day 9th Nepal International Trade Fair ends today at Kathmandu. Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra creates awareness on various government schemes in Indian cities of Hapur and Delhi.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Change Makers on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Cyclone Michaung likely to make landfall today. Red alert for a few districts in Andhra Pradesh. Offices, schools closed. Flights halted in Chennai. Israel presses ground offensive in southern Gaza as internet and phone services go down. UN chief urges Israel to avoid worsening aid crisis. Indonesia's Merapi volcano erupts for a second day. Rescue team recovers 11 dead bodies out of 75 climbers who were in the area at the time of eruption. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. An American woman died after a shark attacked her while paddle boarding in the Bahamas on Monday. The woman was from Boston and was with a relative when the attack occurred. The police said that a lifeguard rescued the pair. While fatal shark attacks are not common in the Bahamas, at least 2 others have been reported recently. Thousands of protesters have gathered in New Zealand's city squares, motorway bridges and in front of country's parliament to protest new government's policies that are believed to be racist. The protest action was called for by political party Te Mati Puaru and coincides with the opening of New Zealand's 54th parliament later in the day. Denmark's Queen Margaret took to the stage to receive applause as part of the creative team behind the ballet The Snow Queen at Copenhagen's Tivoli. The 83-year-old monarch has been a creative force behind the scenography in Hans Christian Andersen's classic fairy tale. The Queen has been designing stage sets and costumes for the theatre since the late 1980s. Children and adults were delighted in Chile's capital at a Christmas Paris parade that paid tribute to the Walt Disney Company for its 100th anniversary. Crowds packed Santiago's main avenues to get a glimpse of giant balloons depicting iconic Disney characters such as Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. This was the 12th edition of the Paris parade, which got cancelled during the COVID-19 pandemic. And shifting focus, it's now been 4 days since the week-long temporary ceasefire between Israel and Gaza expired, and the Israeli military are continuing to push south in the Gaza Strip. Israeli tanks and other armored vehicles are now reported to be operating close to Khan Yunis, the largest city in the southern Gaza Strip. The intensified strikes comes after having largely gained control of the now devastated north. Meanwhile, the Israel Defense Forces are repeatedly asking tens of thousands of Palestinians to move from areas across the south. The IDF believes Hamas commanders are in the city, where hundreds of thousands are sheltering since fleeing the fighting in the north. Meanwhile, Israeli army spokesperson Daniel Hagari in a briefing said that Hamas deliberately embeds itself among civilians so that Gazans will bear the consequences of Hamas atrocities. He added that the forces are taking extensive measures to mitigate harm to the civilians that Hamas uses as shields.
We have entered a new phase in our war against Hamas. Hamas broke the humanitarian pause when it violated the hostage release agreement by refusing to release women, children, and babies as agreed. Hamas also fired rockets at Israeli homes. It should be clear to everyone by now, Hamas chooses war. It has been 8 weeks since October 7th, and Hamas is still holding 137 of our people hostage, babies, the elderly, women and men. Hamas does not value human life, Israeli or Palestinian. Hamas is willing to sacrifice its own people to advance its genocidal agenda. We will operate in maximum force against Hamas terrorists and infrastructures while minimizing harm to the civilian that Hamas places around them as shields.
And the White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said the United States will continue to press for the release of additional hostages held by Hamas in Gaza.
We're still talking about trying to find a way forward on hostages. We're talking about sustaining and expanding the humanitarian assistance, making it into Gaza. Right now, Hamas is refusing to release civilian women who should have been part of the agreement. And it is that refusal by Hamas that has caused the end of the hostage agreement and therefore the end of the pause in hostilities.
Well, Sullivan also said that the U.S. expects Israel to avoid attacking areas identified by Israeli authorities as no-strike zones in Gaza.
Just to take a step back, what Israel has done is it said, this is the area where we are going to conduct ground maneuver. Please, everybody move out of this area so that you're not going to be caught in the crossfire. They have also indicated that there are areas where there will be no strike zones. And in those zones, we do expect Israel to follow through on not striking.
Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres appealed to Israel on Monday to avoid further action that would exacerbate the already catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza. UN spokesperson Stephen Dujarric said, and I quote, "The Secretary General reiterates the need for unimpeded and sustained humanitarian aid flow to meet the needs of the people throughout this trip. For people ordered to evacuate, there is nowhere safe to go and very little to survive on," unquote. Also, U.S. Senator from New York, Kristen Gillibrand, has said that the UN must hold Hamas accountable for the heinous crimes.
The world community must do more. It must demand accountability for these intolerable crimes. The United Nations must denounce Hamas as a terrorist organization that uses rape as a weapon of war. The United Nations must live up to its purpose of upholding the principles of international law, and the United Nations must condemn these evil crimes against humanity.
And Israel held an event at the UN in New York focused on sexual violence against women during the 7th of October attack by Hamas. Israel has been critical of the world body's response to the attacks. Israeli ambassador to UN, Gildan Erdan, said the crimes against women on the 7th of October have been ignored by the UN.
UN women ignored all of the proof and were blind to all the evidence, including video footage of clear testimonies of sexual crimes. Instead of immediately supporting the victims, UN women brazenly suggested that Hamas's gender-based violence be investigated by a blatantly anti-Semitic UN body. This is UN Women's response. So I will state clearly today, the investigation that truly must be carried out is an investigation of UN Women's indifference to the heinous crimes against Israeli women.
Well, moving on now, the United States charged a former ambassador to Bolivia with spying for Cuba for over 40 years. Victor Manuel Roca, who served as U.S. ambassador to Bolivia from 2000 to 2002, was charged with committing multiple federal crimes, including acting as an illegal foreign agent and using a fraudulently obtained passport, the Justice Department said in a statement. U.S. Attorney General Merrick told reporters on Monday that Roca made incriminating statements to an undercover agent and that he referred to the United States as the enemy. Roca was arrested and is expected to appear before a federal judge in Miami. Well, the White House is warning that funding for Ukraine will run out by the end of the year. It said Kyiv would be kneecapped in its war against Russia if Congress fails to approve new aid. From Washington, DD India's Kate Fisher reports for more.
There is no magical pot of funding available. We are out of money and nearly out of time. That's the stark warning from the White House's budget director in a letter to congressional leaders calling on them to pass President Joe Biden's request for $106 billion in emergency funding. That total also covers his other foreign policy priorities, including Israel and the Indo-Pacific. Shalanda Young said that without congressional action, the US simply will run out of money by the end of the year to procure more weapons and equipment for Ukraine and to provide equipment from US military stocks. But President Biden's funding request remains stuck in gridlock on Capitol Hill under mounting Republican opposition to helping Kyiv. Some lawmakers, especially in the Senate, where backing for Ukraine runs deeper, are trying to negotiate a bipartisan deal that would contain aid for Kyiv, alongside new immigration procedures to reduce the number of migrants arriving in the US through its southern border. But those talks appear to be faltering, and even if it gets through the Senate, it's unclear if it can pass the Republican-led House, whose new Speaker, Mike Johnson, has been sceptical of funding for Ukraine. Kate Fisher in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been invited to address U.S. Senate at a closed briefing via video as part of a classified briefing to hear what is at stake. The closed briefing for senators is scheduled for 3 p.m. EST on Tuesday and will feature U.S. national security officials. Well, Russian officials have confirmed the death of a deputy Russian Army Corps commander in Ukraine. According to the reports, Major General Vladimir Zavatsky was the 7th Major General whose death has been confirmed by Russia and the 12th senior officer overall to be reported dead since the start of what Russia calls its special military operation in Ukraine. Dasha Chernyshova has more from Moscow.
The governor of Russia's Voronezh region, Alexander Gusev, has confirmed the death of Major General Vladimir Zavatsky, deputy commander of Russia's 14th Army Corps. According to Gusev, Zavatsky had died at a combat post in the area of the so-called special military operation in Ukraine. The official praised Zavatsky for his deeds to Russia. State Duma lawmaker Andrei Gurulev reposted a picture from the farewell ceremony with Zavadsky. Russian authorities rarely update on the number of Russian losses in the area of the so-called special military operation. Last time, Russia's Ministry of Defense said Moscow lost about 6,000 men, but that was in September 2022, after Russian president announced partial mobilization in the country. And a few days ago, Russian Minister of Defense Sergei Shoigu said that Moscow was advancing on all fronts. He said, quote, Russian servicemen were effectively and firmly inflicting fire damage on the Ukrainian armed forces, significantly reducing their combat capabilities. Dasha Cherneshova reporting in Moscow for DD India.
And a long line of trucks unfolded on the side of the road as Polish drivers have been blocking the crossings since 6th of November, demanding the reinstatement of a system where Ukrainian companies need permits to operate in the bloc and European truckers require permits to enter Ukraine. The permits were abolished after Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year in response to protest, causing lines of up to 18 kilometers on the Polish side at major crossings. Ukraine opened a new small crossing in Urninev, Dolo by to allow empty trucks to leave faster. Well, Russian President Vladimir Putin witnessed a simulation of the nuclear button but declined to press it. Putin visited a vast exhibition of Russian achievements in what looked like a warm-up for an imminent re-election campaign. Putin was briefed about a Soviet nuclear bomb design and shown a mock control panel for launching a nuclear test before observing images of a blast and mushroom cloud through a viewing window. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Open Network for Digital Commerce and partners launch Build for Bharat initiative to transform digital commerce. UK unveils tough new rules designed to cut immigrant numbers. And Rafael Nadal, the former tennis world #1, gears up for a comeback after hip surgery.
Every year, hundreds of thousands of Indian students go abroad to pursue higher education. But now, India has opened its doors for foreign higher educational institutions who can set up and operate their campuses here.
Bringing these foreign university campuses will provide an additional opportunity to our students to study in foreign universities while staying in India.
How will you ensure that only the best universities come to India?
They should be within the top 500 ranks in the global rankings, although we have not specified any global ranking agency, but in general, or subject-wise, they should be within the 500 global rankings.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and moving on. The 9th Nepal International Trade Fair, organized by the Federation of Nepalese Chambers of Commerce and Industry, which ran for 5 days, ends today at Kathmandu. A total of 210 exhibition stalls from Bangladesh, India, China and Pakistan, along with host Nepal, was set up in the fair. Under the aegis of ICC, more than 30 Indian companies participated in the Indian Pavilion, showcasing their capital goods in hydropower and solar energy, electrical goods, engineering goods, and others. Bangladesh textile and leather goods of Pakistan attracted the locals. And Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, with an aim to extend the benefits of the development schemes to all the citizens, reached Mayur Vihar and Ashok Nagar in India's capital city of New Delhi. This endeavour is poised to pass through all 11 districts of Delhi and cover more than 600 places. Various camps were organised with an aim to making people aware about various welfare schemes of the central government. Prime Minister Narendra Modi started the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra from Kunti in the Indian state of Jharkhand on the 15th of November. And Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra reached Fuldhara village of Hapur district in India's Uttar Pradesh, where villagers were given information about the schemes being run by the central government. During the program, many departments set up stalls and gave on-the-spot information about the schemes of the central government. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. New Delhi's air quality is showing no signs of improvement as the air quality index dips into very poor category in several areas as per the Central Pollution Control Board. In many parts, it is more than 300. The propulsion module of Chandrayaan-3 has successfully returned to Earth's orbit by Indian Space Research Organisation, which was initially intended for lunar operations. 3 workers were rescued hours after more than 10 were trapped under the sacks of grains due to a storage unit collapse in the Indian state of Karnataka. Heating system has been installed in Kankaria Zoo, located in the Indian state of Gujarat, to keep the animals protected from the cold weather. The 24th edition of the 10-day-long Hornbill Festival is being celebrated in full swing in the northeastern state of Nagaland. The Hornbill Festival in Nagaland, also known as the Festival of Festivals, is a vibrant celebration that highlights the cultural richness of the region. Empower Fest 2023 was inaugurated on Monday in India's Shillong to mark the International Day for Persons with Disabilities. The fest has been organized for the disabled in the State Central Library complex. And time for some business news now. Open Network for Digital Commerce in collaboration with Google Cloud, Antler, Paytm, Protean and Startup India unveils Build for Bharat. Over 200,000 participants are set to revolutionize digital commerce challenges across 50+ cities. DD India correspondent Siddharth Bharadwaj reports for more.
Multiple use cases. We heard the expectation.
Digital commerce is pivotal. It offers businesses a global reach, enhanced customer experiences and streamlined transactions. There are certain challenges that comes its way which are needed to be tackled. The Open Network for Digital Commerce in collaboration with Google Cloud India, Antler in India, Paytm, Protean and Startup India has announced Build for Bharat initiative that aims to tackle diverse challenges in digital commerce. Aman Gupta, co-founder and CMO at Boat Lifestyle, was present at the event. During an exclusive conversation with DD India, he shared valuable insights when asked about advice for aspiring entrepreneurs.
I think it's a good time to start here. It's never been a better time to start than now. Abhi dekho, there is so much happening around startups. If you see, never in the world was a startup day celebrated, which Modi ji has started. Now startup day is being celebrated. I think now people are proud to start up, and India being India, I think now is the time then that people can pursue their dreams and build the next Googles or the Microsofts or the Apples from India.
Tiko Shi, MD and CEO at ONDC, also emphasized on growing digital commerce system in India and also spoke about how the startups are contributing to India's economy.
The beauty is this collective effort that is coming from this large community will act as a stimulant to not just the big cities, but even the small villages, because they suddenly realize there is a product they can make for their part of the world, which will still find its relevance in this large network.
Vijay Shekhar Sharma, founder and CEO Paytm, also praised the evolving digital landscape in the country.
There is a organic demand now. When a shopkeeper opens, there is a requirement of digital payment system, and I fundamentally believe that soon it'll be that I have a requirement of going on ONDC, and I think that should be the India stack in complete sense, or DPI's full vision. When a retailer or a manufacturer starts to sell to consumers, they think of it that I have to obviously have a digital payment and obviously go on ONDC.
In the future, digital commerce promises a world where convenience meets innovation, transforming how we buy and sell online.
The expanding digital spectrum in the country is a clear sign that the future holds immense potential. With camera person Pramod Kumar, this is Siddharth Bharadwaj for DD India in New Delhi.
The UK is sharply increasing the salary required to secure a skilled worker visa for the country. It's part of plans to try and bring down overall net migration numbers to Britain. DD India's Oli Barrett reports from London.
UK Home Secretary James Cleverly confirming new measures designed to bring down that overall net migration number. And the headline move that he is making is raising significantly the salary requirement that you're going to need to get a skilled job visa for the UK. So anyone coming, for example, from India to Britain to work here in the United Kingdom will have to prove in future that they have a salary for their new job of £38,700. Now that is around 4 million Indian rupees per year, and that is up from previously £26,200. So it is a major spike in that salary threshold that is going to be required. One of the other changes, significant changes, that the Home Secretary James Cleverly has announced is that it'll be much harder now for dependents of people who do secure visas to come to the UK with them. The Home Secretary says that that part of the system has been, in his words, abused in the past, and so he's clamping down on the number of people that will come to the UK as dependents of people who secure visas. As I say, the reason the Home Secretary is making these changes is because in the last 12-month period, net migration to the UK was over 745,000. The UK government says that is far too high and needs to come down, and that's why it's making these changes. Ollie Barrett in London reporting for DD India.
And time now for some sports news. Two-time champions India will today start their campaign in the FIH Hockey Men's Junior World Cup 2023 against the Republic of Korea in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Uttam Singh will captain the Indian side. The 13th edition of the Junior Men's Hockey World Cup will see 16 teams divided equally into 4 groups compete for the top 2 spots in their group and secure a place in the quarter-finals. The bottom 2 teams from each group will enter classification rounds. And in tennis, Rafael Nadal, the former world #1, is gearing up for a comeback after hip surgery. Having last played at the Australian Open due to a hip flexor issue, Nadal underwent surgery in June and now aims to embrace the journey. In a recent Instagram video, he showed his nerves about returning after nearly a year, expressing a desire to forgive himself if the comeback is gradual. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook X, formerly known as Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Vipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.